There is a system in your brain doing exactly what it evolved to do. The problem is that your life no longer matches the environment it was designed for. You seek validation because for 200,000 years, the opinion of your group determined whether you survived the winter. If the tribe rejected you, you died. Not metaphorically, literally. So your brain built a reward prediction system around social approval that fires dopamine when you detect signs of acceptance and floods you with cortisol when you sense exclusion. That system worked beautifully when your social world was 30 people and feedback was immediate, honest, and consequential. Now you live in a world where strangers give you thumbs and hearts, and where rejection costs nothing and approval means even less. But your biological machinery hasn't updated the software. It still interprets a lack of likes the way it would interpret being exiled from the group. This is why the need feels so urgent. It is urgent, evolutionarily speaking. It's just aimed at the wrong target. Here's the uncomfortable part. Validation seeking isn't a personality flaw. It's a feature. Primates are obsessed with status and belonging because those things correlate directly with reproductive success and survival. If you watch a troop of baboons, you'll see them spend hours grooming each other, not because they enjoy it, but because grooming is political currency. It signals alliance. It reduces tension. It communicates where you stand. Humans do the exact same thing, but we've outsourced grooming to language, clothing, achievements, and now, pixels. The mechanism is identical. The difference is scale and consequence. In a small group, you knew when someone respected you because they shared food with you or defended you or chose you as a partner. The feedback loop was direct and the stakes were survival. In the digital age, feedback is constant, anonymous, algorithmically manipulated, and utterly disconnected from your actual safety or worth. Your brain, however, doesn't know that. It treats a notification like evidence of tribal standing. It treats silence like a threat. The mismatch is the trap. Now, this is where people usually get it wrong. They think the solution is to stop caring what people think. That's not realistic, and it's not even desirable. Humans are social animals. Caring about your reputation and your relationships is adaptive. The issue isn't that you care. The issue is that the environment you're caring in has been weaponized against you. Social media platforms are designed to hijack your reward prediction system. They deliver variable ratio reinforcement, which is the same mechanism that makes slot machines addictive. Sometimes your post gets attention, sometimes it doesn't. You never know which, so you keep checking. Your dopamine system doesn't respond to rewards. It responds to the prediction of rewards. Uncertainty is the most powerful trigger. The platforms know this. They've built their entire infrastructure around keeping you in a state of anticipatory anxiety. And because the feedback is so frequent and so unpredictable, your brain starts to orient its entire sense of worth around it. You stop asking whether you're doing good work, or being a good partner, or living according to your values. You start asking whether people noticed. That shift is where the trap closes. Let me pause for a second and ask you something people rarely ask honestly. What is the hardest part of living with this? Not the version you explain to others, but the part you deal with alone. If you feel comfortable, leave a comment. Not for advice, just to name it. You'd be surprised how many people are carrying the same thing quietly. So what actually works is not trying to eliminate the need for validation, but redirecting where you source it and how you structure the environment. First protocol is friction design. You are not going to willpower your way out of checking your phone. The CEO of your brain, the prefrontal cortex, has limited bandwidth. If your validation loop is instant and frictionless, your prefrontal cortex loses every time. What works is making the behavior harder to perform than the alternative. Delete social media apps from your phone, not forever, just for the duration of a specific task or day. If you want to check, you have to log in through a browser, which takes 30 seconds longer. That 30 seconds is enough for your prefrontal cortex to intervene. It sounds trivial. It isn't. Friction converts an automatic behavior into a decision. Once it's a decision, You have leverage. The second part of this protocol is replacement, not elimination. If you remove the validation loop without replacing the dopamine source, you'll feel miserable and you'll relapse. Replace scrolling with something that generates mastery-based dopamine. Learning a skill, fixing something, finishing a chapter. Mastery-based dopamine is slower, but it's more stable because it's tied to competence, not approval. Your brain can tell the difference. Second protocol is audience selection. This is where people fail because they think it's about not caring. It isn't. It's about being selective about whose opinion you weight. In a small group, you didn't value everyone's opinion equally. You valued the people who had skin in the game with you, the people who would share risk, who knew your context, who had something to lose if you failed. The rest were background noise. You need to reconstruct that filter digitally. Whose feedback actually matters to your survival, competence, or relationships? That's a list of maybe 5 to 15 people. Everyone else is a stranger with an opinion. Strangers' opinions are not worthless, but they're not worth cortisol. What actually works is auditing your environment. If you're sharing something, ask yourself, am I doing this because it's useful or because I want to be seen doing it? If it's the latter, that's fine, but recognize the cost. You're feeding the variable ratio loop. You're training your brain to expect external validation for internal states. The more you do that, the less you're able to self-validate. Self-validation isn't confidence. It's the ability to assess your own behavior against your own standards without needing a third party to confirm it. That capacity atrophies if you don't use it, and the only way to use it is to do things that matter to you in private and let them remain private. If this made sense to you, it's not because you're broken. It's because your brain is doing exactly what it evolved to do in the wrong environment. Understanding that doesn't fix everything, but it gives you leverage. And leverage is where real change starts. If this way of thinking helps you see yourself more clearly, you know what to do.